Okay, this is now the 5 Minute Tarot for the 23rd of March, 2017. And today it's going to be about the difference between good and bad cards and what we can do with them. First, though, I'd like to mention that the astrology site is going to be ready ideally tomorrow. I sort of wanted to make it perfect or complete or big, but I'm just going to start with something, so there'll be something to look at very soon. Okay, so this is about good and bad cards, and it's because there were some comments on the previous video, the video a little while ago about the 3 and 10 swords, the difference between them. And Renee left a comment saying that she felt that the 10 of swords was the worst card in the deck because the best she could offer was to say to the person with the 10 of swords, the worst is over. But Bruce said that he thought that there's some other cards like the Tower of the Devil and sometimes Death are worse than the 10 of swords. And the 9 of swords is quite upsetting too. But then Renee said, okay, everybody has a different feeling about the best or worst card. And this can, so all cards, or don't all cards have both good and bad in them. So this video is about the difference between good and bad cards. And I'd like to give you an overview because I could have emailed back and forth and comments back and forth dealing with these particular points, but I thought that a video would be a better way of approaching it. And so the first point I'd like to make is we have to remember that the reading is about the questioner. It's not about the reader. And this can mean that your personal opinion or your preference really doesn't matter. So as an example, because the reading is about the questioner, think about people and their actual lives. So let's say, as an example, let's say somebody gets laid off from work, right? So you think, not that they get fired for whatever, because they did badly, but they get laid off through no fault of their own. So you can think that being laid off from work is a bad thing. But if being laid off means that the person goes out, works hard, gets extra qualifications, and then gets a better job that they wouldn't have had if they had stayed in the old job, then is being laid off a bad thing or a good thing? So I'm trying to make the point that what seems to be bad in the moment or at that moment isn't automatically going to work out to be a bad thing or lead to difficulty and so on. Whereas, so being laid off can actually turn out to be a good thing. But if you're laid off and you do nothing and you just sit around waiting for good to come and find you, then I can see that being laid off is a bad thing. It really depends on how you react to the circumstance of the condition. And so I'm saying good and bad, and I'm reminded of something from Bob Dylan again, because he said, or he wrote at one point, good and bad are but words used by people who are trapped in scenes. Right, so you got the scene in the idea that this is a club scene, so that if you're a member of the club scene, then you dress a certain way, you have a certain lifestyle, you go out at a certain time, and so on. So a scene is like a whole range of behaviors. But at the same time, a scene can also be a scene in a movie, right? So let's say a dramatic scene, but it's part of the movie, it's part of a whole story. Or let's say you've got a play where you've got Act 1, Scene 1, Act 1, Scene 2. So the scene itself maybe has importance or significance, but we have to remember and understand that the scene, or Act 1, Scene 2, let's say, is part of a whole play. So I think the reader can help the questioner by showing that and how the scene in a particular card fits the overall picture. It's not so much that, to some extent, you're looking at, let's say, the 10 of swords and saying the clouds are lifting, so it can be good. But maybe what we do is also, as readers, we figure out or we point out to the questioner in what way the Ten of Swords fits into the overall picture. Even if you take a positive view about the card or the difficulty, the problem is some people take a difficult card or a bad card and sort of turn it around into something that's really good, but that can end up as wishful thinking and really doesn't help the questioner that much to deal with a difficulty. So it's not always a good idea to take negative cards, we could call them, and just see the positive side, or prefer to talk about the positive side and ignore what's being shown that isn't so pleasant in the card. So what the reader can do is, if we want to be useful to the questioner, maybe what we do is we give the questioner perspective and context, so they can go back into their life after the reading and be able to live it better or live it more knowledgeably. So let's say the Ten of Swords is the outcome. You can say, okay, the clouds are lifting, so it's going to get better. But if you try to make them feel better and ignore the difficulty, that can backfire. Because, okay, let's say we look at the Ten of Swords and say, okay, this card shows defeat, right, stabbed in the back. So whatever the question is about, it's not going to work out. It's not going to work. And you're going to get to the point where you know you've been defeated, because that's shown by the Ten of Swords, let's say, as a final outcome. It's not going to work. You're going to be defeated. So at that point, you either hold on and hope it's going to change, or you move on to something more. You take what you've learned and you apply it. So that's one way of looking at the Ten of Swords. So you're saying it's not going to work, and either accept that and learn from it, or don't accept it and continue on stuck or defeated. And I think that's one way of dealing with a bad card. You just say what's there. So you could, okay, let's say, you're going to reach a point where you're defeated. So you could pick a card for what to do next. But that if you say, okay, you're going to reach a point where you're defeated, but pick a card and we get 3 cards, but it's going to be good, you're going to meet somebody, that might weaken the sense of defeat that the person's going to experience, so they don't take the lesson from defeat that seriously, or they're more focused on what's going to happen afterward, so they sort of meander through the difficulty and don't experience it fully, because their mind is on the positive, fruitful, nice relationships they're going to have afterward. So you can spoil things for the questioner, whereas simply saying, okay, you're going to reach a point where you're defeated, and then it's up to you what you do. You can learn from it, or you can stay in it, stay defeated. And I think the reader stops at that point, rather than assume that they're not going to be able to handle it, so we need to do something to make it easier for them. Whereas it's about the questioner. The reading is about the questioner. So if you say there's defeat in the future, that's the final outcome, and they say, okay, if they keep the ball rolling and say, if they say, okay, what do I do then? What do I do at that point? That's different, because it's the questioner asking for more information. It's not you, the reader, assuming they can't handle it and that they're going to need to know what to do next. Okay, I know I'm leaving out a lot, but maybe we can have a discussion about this, or tell me what you think, and who knows what kind of discussion we, if any, we'll have. But that's something about good and bad cards, one way of looking at them. Okay, so tomorrow I think it's going to be about the difference between 7 and 9. The 7s and the 9s are both endpoints or points of completion. But what's the difference between them? That's it for today. Thank you very much, and talk to you again. Bye-bye.